So let's talk about the innate immune response. Innate means that it's something that you're born with. It's natural. And an immune response is how the body recognizes and defends against pathogens. So this part of the immune response you've got from birth, and that's different to the adaptive immune response, which we'll talk about later, which develops from exposure to pathogens. So here's a syllabus objectives. You need to explain how host cells recognize self from non-self. You need to look at the 3 lines of defense. We're going to talk about these first 2 today, and then we're going to look more specifically at the inflammatory response. First of all, let's start with the story. In D-Day, back in World War II, the soldiers from the Allies had to have a way of being able to differentiate between friendly ally soldiers and the enemy without making too much noise. So they used these clickers. It was just a simple click that would determine. They'd come across somebody, they would do a click, and they would expect a click in response. And if they didn't get a click in response, then they knew that it was an enemy. So it was a very simple clicker type thing. How do cells do it? They need to be able to differentiate between their own cells versus a foreign cell. They need to be able to do this really quickly to be able to defend against invasion. If it is non-self, then that's going to trigger an immune response. How does it do it? Well, we have these markers on self cells. They are called MHC1, or Major Histocompatibility Complex. Histo means tissue. Compatibility, it means compatible, means self. So MHC1s are markers on self cells or body cells that tell the immune response, hey, I'm just like you. If cells don't have these markers, well, it tells the immune response that, hey, I'm an enemy. So what are they called? Markers that are not self are called antigens. Antibody generator, that's where this comes from, antigen. So a protein on the surface of matter that's foreign to the body is called an antigen. And it says that I'm foreign, and that's going to trigger the immune response. So in terms of the immune response, there's actually 3 levels of the immune response. We talk about the first, second, and third lines of defense, but we've got the innate immune response, the one that we're born with, versus the adaptive immune response, which would be another video. So today we're going to look at the first line of defense, which is the physical and chemical barriers, and then the second line of defense, inflammation, phagocytosis, etc. So the first line of defense then, it's the physical and chemical barriers that prevent pathogens from entering the body. So remember, a pathogen is a pathology generator. It's something that can cause disease, cause infectious disease. So first of all, we've got physical barriers that actually stop them from entering. Skin, mucosal membranes, they're like if you open your mouth, it's like that pink lining inside your mouth. It's like skin, but it's a mucous membrane. And then we've got cilia. Now, cilia is small little hairs. I'm going to talk about those in the mucociliary escalator very soon. And we've got chemical barriers as well. So various parts of the body excrete different types of chemicals. Mucus, acid, enzymes, and even tears. In terms of the skin, of course, that's a physical barrier, but it's also a chemical barrier because it's acidic. It also excretes oils and sweat. And there's also a biological barrier in that there's healthy natural flora, and they prevent unhealthy bacteria from colonizing the area. Now, mucous membranes, so these are inside, say, like our trachea, and particularly this one's the trachea here. So, but also within our stomach and our small intestine, etc. So we've got these goblet cells that produce mucus. Now, mucus is a sticky type substance that captures particles and pathogens on their way down into the lungs. But we've also got this cilia as well, and it's the movement of the cilia pushes the mucus up into the mouth, and then we can clear it through coughing. Now, the second line of defense. This occurs when a pathogen has actually got in and invaded. It's non-specific, so it's very, very rapid. And the whole point of it is to engulf foreign bodies. So it's specifically about the inflammatory response. And there's three things that we need to talk about in terms of the inflammatory response. So inflammation. So this is like, you can think of inflammation as swelling. So when a pathogen or some sort of injury, like you sprain your ankle or something, it can stimulate that inflammatory response by the release of prostaglandins that are released from the damaged cells. Prostaglandins make the capillaries in the area vasodilate, so it increases the blood flow to the area. That's why with swelling, that's why with inflammation you get swelling. It gets hot and it gets red because you've got increased blood flow to the area. Now, also those blood vessels become leaky, so that fluid and phagocytes are able to sneak out of the blood vessels to the site of the infection. So again, that's why you get swelling, because the vasodilation, but also the leakiness of the vessels means fluid and the phagocytes go to the area. It's painful because of the swelling, but also because there's this battle going on here between the phagocytes and the pathogen. And so the whole point of the inflammation really is so that we've got these phagocytes who are able to come out into the area of the infection and attack the pathogen. We've also got these things called natural killer cells. I'm going to explain those in a minute. Okay, so what is phagocytosis? That means cell eating. It's a type of endocytosis, and we have these white blood cells that they're non-specific, and their job is to engulf and to engulf or eat anything that's foreign. So so it could be a splinter, it could be dead cells, it could be pathogens. And we've really got two types of cells involved in this. We've got neutrophils, which respond really quickly, but they don't last as long. And then we've got the macrophages. Macro, large, phage, eat, big eater. They last longer and they clean up the mess, but they also coordinate the next steps. So just differentiating between the two, the neutrophils, they circulate in the blood. They're the first ones on the scene, and they aggressively engulf the pathogens. But then the macrophages, they live in the tissue, so they take longer to get to the site of the infection. Again, they engulf the pathogens, but they also clean up the dead cells and the debris, etc. But what they also do is they present the antigens from the pathogen on their surface. So they're called antigen presenting cells. Now that's really important for the next step, that adaptive immune response, which we'll talk about in the next video, because they present these antigens from the pathogen on their surface, and that stimulates the adaptive immune response. Now, we've also got natural killer cells. They kill infected body cells, but they also kill cancer cells. They're constantly patrolling, and they come in contact with other cells, and they're detecting from these other cells, like they're looking at the receptors, they self receptors, the MHC ones, but also are there any antigens? And it's kind of a balance between the two. If there's more or only MHC ones, then that's fine, and it inhibits the natural killer cells. But if there's only the antigens, or if there's more antigens than there are MHCs, well, that gives you the activation of the natural killer cells. What do they do? So they kill by punching holes in the infected cells. Then they squeeze in enzymes that trigger the death of those pathogenic cells. Okay, so natural killer cells. Now, another really important non-specific aspect of the innate immune response is called the complement system. So the complement system is really complex. It's not something we need to understand in any great detail, but it involves proteins that are formed in the liver. They just are constantly flowing through the blood and around the cells in an inactive state. But when they get triggered, we get this cascade that occurs that has a whole range of different effects. They trigger phagocytosis, they directly destroy pathogens, they signal macrophages to move to that area, and they activate the release of histamine, etc. Look, a whole heap of things, really complex. There's other videos that are way better than this one on the complement system. Anyway, so that's the innate immune response.